Hello, everyone. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Hello. It's such a pleasure for me to introduce Brian Sheen. So, let me tell you why we have Brian Sheen on today. Dr. Brian Sheen is a best-selling author, a lecturer, and he's the director of the Quantum Healing Center in Delray Beach, Florida. Brian is an expert in neurolinguistic programming, transpersonal hypnotherapy, psychoneuroimmunology, and a wide range of spiritual hypnotherapies and psychotherapies. He had such a successful career as a financial planner, and now he has a highly acclaimed program, the 7 Keys for Attention Development and Emotional Wellness. And this program is recognized and celebrated for its tremendous success in helping children and adults with depression, ADD, ADHD, and helping them get off drugs and have normal, fulfilling lives. In our conversation, Dr. Sheen and I will explore his experience in helping people with thyroid issues and using hypnosis and spiritual therapy-based approaches towards healing thyroid issues. So, welcome, Brian.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Myra. Thank you so much, and thank you for the nice introduction.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, also, let me share with our viewers, this is the first conversation you and I are ever having. And yet, you have been in my mind over the past couple of years, this beacon of bright light, watching you from a distance and truly admiring your work. Because a couple of years ago, I became very involved and very interested in the topic of thyroid health. And you had a couple of articles published on the internet with the tremendous success you were having of helping people balance their thyroids and getting off medication, having been on medication for years and years, and being able to have a normal life without that, without the medication and healthy thyroids. So because of that, I have admired you from a distance, and so it's such a pleasure now to speak with you in person.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Myra. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. How did it come about that you started working with people with thyroid issues?
You know, throughout all my career, I get led
Yeah.
by the clients who show up, by the students who come to class, by what people present. And I find that a very strange thing happens. When you've been doing this type of work for so many years, and I've been involved in the field now for 40 years plus, and there are certain trends that just happen. Then all of a sudden, people start showing up: depression, ADHD, and that just happened over a time period many years ago when I first started the research. People were just showing up. And I couldn't believe some of the things that they were doing, because they were radiating the gland. They were doing surgery and removing the gland. They were using all sorts of different medications, and some of them were more natural than others. And there was all of this kind of sense of, hyper and hypo, and whether it was overactivated, whether it was underactivated. And it just showed up. And as I started looking at people and sensing what was happening, there's certain similarities started showing up of this person, and it wasn't so different whether they were hyper or hypo. It was the similarity was in things that were going on in their lives that created at least how I see things, and a vision that I've always shared in all of my work is that you have to give your system, and we all have this incredibly knowledgeable system, okay, of the body that interacts with the mind, that interacts with the emotions, that interacts with spirit, that interacts with each other. And it's this incredible system of consciousness, and that if it's open, if it's circulating, if it's free without interference, you'll have the best possible for you. That doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, okay? Because we all have the different elements of our system that we carry. We all have a predisposal, to the possibilities of our DNA. We all have predisposal to family type of events of what we grow up in, the cultures that we grow up in influence us quite a bit too. So I just started seeing that in this particular area of illness or imbalance or challenge, that there were so many similarities between the emotional mental biographies. And the body is a representation of the biography of the individual, and it's not so much what happened to them, it's how they handled and interpreted what happened to them.
That's very interesting. Say some more.
Yeah, well, you see, every situation in life, every thought, every word creates a biological response inside of us. Every body posture, every action creates a biological response. And that response, however, is moderated by the knower, the individual, the spirit, whatever you want to call that awareness of being aware of what's happening. But they're the ones who give it the meaning. They're the ones who interpret it as, I feel safe, I can handle this, okay, or oh my God, what's happening? This is dangerous. So they're either going into a safe mode, relaxed, or even maybe a challenge mode of excitement of being in the game, where you have a positive stress, or they're going into distress. So you have stress, and nothing's wrong with stress at all, because existence cannot exist without it. The question is it distress or is it eustress? Distress is when we're constricting, and I'm doing this purposely since we have this amazing thing of being able to have video in our conversation, okay? But when you're distressing, you're constricting, you're defending, you're in fear. There's a perceived threat, real or imagined. When you're in eustress, and that's EU stress, that's a positive stress where you're anticipating something fun. It could be the stress of a first date, of the nervousness but it's a positive, oh my God, I'm going to meet someone, and it's, but it's the same thing, but it's linked in the mind with positive internal dialogue, with an open kind of movement and excitement, okay, and an anticipation of something good. But the moment that shifts and I anticipate something bad, that constriction happens, which, again, it happens. It's a holistic, integrative experience. It doesn't just happen in a thinking. It creates the biological response of fear, and the body goes into the startle reflex at greater or lesser degree, and it starts creating memories. It starts creating imprints of that, and everything gets linked to that, and that's the beginning of the thyroid problem. Because whether we know it or not, the most important area that I've kind of learned, okay, and I got this particularly from one of my wonderful, great teachers who, he was just amazing, but I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Alexander Lowen, who was the founder of bioenergetics, and one of his close students, Dr. Robert Glazier, who I had a chance to work with both of them. But we always talk about that the most important aspect of the body is the jaw. That when we look at things, we look at the jaw because that's our first growth and development experience, the oral stage that we go through. You look at pigs, they put their feet in their mouth and, and they're learning through their mouth. And depending upon that experience, what we also have to realize is the jaw, the mouth, jaw, movement, is the beginning of a tube. And that tube goes all the way down through the body and out the other end, it's the same tube. So by the jaw, by our expression, by what is then working next to with the thyroid gland, which is right here too, when that constriction happens, and you see the veins bulging out and the muscles bulging out and the jaw, down. What's happening is we're constricting, we're compressing, we're freezing a part of our system that not only freezes that, it freezes all the way down. It begins to shut off the peristaltic movement, and it predisposes us to imbalance, to illness, because now all of the secretions, the hormones, all the biochemicals and there's so many here in the thyroid and the parathyroid that send signals and messages to the other system to do the work that they need to do to keep the balance, the metabolism particularly working. So when you begin to tie all that together emotionally, mentally, physically, you can begin to see what happens is you'll see similar types of experiences in those people with imbalanced thyroid that all come from usually early childhood, and those frozen moments are still stuck in the unconscious mind body, because we have to remember the body is the unconscious mind. Those receptors on every cell have been trained into that reflexive, and through repetition, if it is repetition, where it's not just a moment of threat or a moment of danger, but something that's more consistent, where, you have constant threats. Maybe you have an alcoholic parent. Maybe you have an emotionally disconnected mother. Maybe you got a brother or sister that's, not happy that you were born because you've taken away all the attention, and they don't, and you're in constant struggles with them, or any other environmental influences, real or imagined, because it doesn't have to be real. See, because some people say, wait, no, you had a great upbringing and your parents were loving. Well, no, that's your perception. What was their perception? We don't know, because the parents could be doing the best possible, but the kid can be so we've got to understand it. But if you go into that, then all of a sudden, that's not just the beginning of thyroid problems. That's the beginning of depression. That's the beginning of all sorts of anxieties. That's the beginning of not being able to express and speak up for yourself. Okay, so that, now begins to affect every other aspect of your life. So kind of this has been my observation and my experience of this kind of integrative way to look at the mind, to look at the emotion, the interpretation, the space of spirituality that a person is there. Because the more at peace we are, the better the opportunity for our system to function at an optimal level. And that's not just now, though, because it has to be, we create chronic character structures. So even though a person might be smiling, their body might not be smiling. Okay. In fact, the smiling itself might be a compensation or avoidance technique to get away from the pain that is characterly being held inside the system, which is why I look at the body first. And I just observe a person and feel their energy, because you can kind of feel, are they open and free and moving and expressive? Or are that, what are they dwelling on? What are they talking about? What's their body language? There's, and from that, you'll see some amazing things that will tell you where to go and what to look for when doing, the healing process.
I really love how you share that the thyroid issue at its core, whether it's an overproductive thyroid or underproductive, it's all about communication and that sense of being stifled in the throat and not being able to express, not being able to communicate. And with people who have overactive thyroids, it's the perception of in the moment not being able to communicate, right? Because they are usually good, excellent communicators who are used to having their way. But it's that perception of in the moment not being able to share and express.
Well,
And
one part is the moment. One part is the moment, that situation. But okay, and that moment is very often reflective of the past. But the thing is, and this is the real problem, Myra. It's the moments that are see, the body is the unconscious mind. We have to remember it's unconscious. We're not conscious of very much of what's going on in the body. Okay, we've got 100 trillion cells interacting simultaneously with such a spontaneity of, I mean, it's beyond imagination, okay, of what's possible with this system. And that's happening even while we're in our head thinking that we're perceiving. So there's the conscious perception, and then there's the unconscious perception. So the person can literally be stuck where they're expressing themselves okay now, but about this subject here. Maybe they're great at work. They go to work and everybody loves them. And when they're at work, they're free. The problem is they go home. Problem is they've got stuff with their mother and father that every time they see it on the ID, okay, it activates that which is already stuck, okay, these chronic holding patterns, okay, and they're chronic as what Alexander Lowen would call and what Wright called armoring, okay, and that's why even though the person may be operating okay in this zone, he's free at work, but then he goes home, and the idea of being a husband or a father or dealing with parents, he's locked up here, and that's happening chronically, even while he's currently maybe doing okay in this particular area. You know what I'm saying? So it's not just a person isn't just fully expressive or fully unexpressive. It's they might have certain areas that they shine, but the moment they get into more intimate spaces, they lock up. And that's more of their permanent chronic condition. I just wanted to distinguish that.
absolutely, that's such an important distinction. And I love how you refer back to previous moments of that being programmed in the body, and the body being the subconscious mind. And I have to tell you, when I read on the internet the story of Cynthia, a woman that you have worked with, that was such a great example of exactly what you're talking, right? Where she had a husband who was triggering the memories from the past of her childhood. Do you want to tell that story, or do you want me to summarize it?
I'd rather you summarize it because I've written that honestly so long ago. I didn't reread it in preparation, and I have so many Cynthias. And the amazing thing is every week in class, and I just maintain 2 ongoing classes now because my students here, I love satsang. I love, getting together and just sharing that. It's beautiful. But every week I see that, and I watch that shutdown of expressiveness when somebody comes and they make that connection like Cynthia did, that what's going on with my husband, okay, has much deeper meaning to it because of what happened to my father. And it's so amazing that when you can recognize the physical symptoms of that in a body, and you see the neck is constricting, you see they're clenching, and and they're sitting there trying to go to and go to a chiropractor and get some TMJ work and do that, but the TMJ work is in your memory, it is in your mind. But please do the summary. I just I just hear it again myself.
You said it so beautifully. Simply summarizing that she grew up with a father who was emotionally and verbally abusive, and she was also sexually abused by him. And she had a feeling that her mother knew but wasn't doing anything about this, right? And she had that feeling of not being able to speak up, not being able to voice it because of the alienation that's going to happen from mom and dad. And then, of course, finding a husband husband who was abusing alcohol and abusing her as well, and the same feeling of not being able to express herself, not being able to assert herself, and whether we say it's Cynthia's stories or Mary's stories, it's such an often occurring condition, isn't it? Where
isn't it horrible that when you said that, okay, there are so many Cynthias that have that same. I'm so sorry that it's so true. I wish it wasn't.
I want to ask you, what is your approach in healing people with thyroid conditions when they come to you?
Well, first of all, the biggest problem with a person dealing with thyroid, to deal with it on a healing deep basis, is making a commitment. Because the problem is, everybody with a thyroid imbalance wants to do something about it. But when you're going through the healing, with this paradigm of integrative healing, of doing complementary and alternative medicine, it's not a quick fix. It's not take your pill, okay. I'm asking people to face those things that they've been running away from, buried inside and avoiding. Okay. Now, they think that that's painful. No, it's actually joyful, because when you embrace it, you release it, so you don't have to keep being the victim of it repetitively over and over again and feeling it. But you have to be willing to do the deep down work. And Cynthia and many other people I work with, those are the ones that have the commitment to really do it. And it could take 3, 6, 9 months. Okay? There's no magic wand. There's no one moment that we're going to uncover that. Now, it could be, but getting to that one moment is probably buried under so many layers of avoidance, because that's the way the mind works. It doesn't want to go in you. That's why the thyroid problem is there, because they're still chronically holding from that moment back then, so energetically, and we know what that is. That creates ischemia. And when you create ischemia all of a sudden reduces the blood and oxygen flow that happens in the system. It all of a sudden begins to weaken the system, because it's not able to get everything that it needs. And the other side of it creates inflammation. And sometimes you overexcite it, okay? And you can go the opposite way. But either way, okay, you're going to have to go and look inside and remember, it's not what you think it is. Rule of therapy of all the work that I do, okay, and this is actually from one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles, is you're never upset for the reason you think. So the person who comes in thinking, oh, I know what my problems were, and I know, the communication problems that I had with my dad and this. Oh, great. Okay, that at least gives us a point to work towards. But I then look at them and say, but please note, whatever it is you already know about it, that's not it. It's what you don't know about. You see, it's what's unconscious, because we bury the guilt and the pain in the body. It's buried inside, and it's out of our awareness. So we've got to find, and you've got to be willing to do different types of techniques to break open that shell that you formed over that pain that you've tried to stay away from, that you've locked up and created this chronic, it's now a chronic condition because you've, and then understand you're going to deny that you did that. And that takes a while. And that's why all of a sudden, that's why I use different types of altered mind therapy. So whether it's hypnosis or whether it's meditation, whether it's different relaxation, being able to create altered states to get you out of that defensive, state, to bring down your gatekeeper so you open up, and that's why on Tuesday nights when I just do a class, I watch people, I teach them first meditation, now relax, and I talk with them about A Course in Miracles, and we do different lessons. And and I said, okay, let me give you some examples. I said, okay, who got angry or upset today, yesterday? Who wants to tell me about something? Oh yeah, I got this. And this just happened as an example the other day. So the guy, yeah. I said, Brian, I didn't use what you taught me, and I was in traffic, and this is like this 65-year-old guy, a wonderful guy, and he says, and I just lost it because all of a sudden the guy in front of me on 95 cut me off, and who was he, and this and that, and this and that. But Brian, you'll be really, really happy to me because I took it under control and I used your tools. So yeah, it took me 30 minutes, but I got to it and I remembered it and I cleared it up and that's my miracle. And I said, well, yeah, but you're not upset for him cutting you off. He goes, what do you mean? That's what happened. I said, no. And then because whenever you're in that state of forgetfulness, you think that trigger, it's definitely a trigger. Okay. I said, but no, that's not it. I said, if you're willing, let's go back and look at this for a moment. And he goes, yeah, of course. So I said, okay, just close your eyes. And I said, go back to that moment when you got cut off. Tell me what you feel, where in your body you felt it, and tell me what was going on in your mind. And he just, and he just, it's like that. And I feel it here, and I feel it heavy in my chest. Okay, I can't sit here, and my whole jaw is locked down, and all I'm thinking is, it's not fair. It's not fair. Okay. And I said, okay, now relax, and thank you for sharing that with me. Now relax a little bit more. Now I can get this done within, literally a minute of class filled with students. I said, okay, now just close your eyes and just concentrate on that it's not fair, and just let yourself drift back through time. Feel the feeling in your body and embrace that feeling with your body. Do it right now and say in your mind, it's not fair. And just tell me if anything comes up, any pictures, any memories, whether it's clear or not. And he's just there. And within 10 seconds, oh, it's not fair. And he's kind of going, it's not fair. I go, what is that and where are you? He says, I'm 10 years old. Okay, what's happening? Well, this opens the door, you see, to that time. And he blocked this out of his memory. At 10 years old, his brother tried to drown him. And he was remembering the attempt of being drowning, where he's in that state, feeling his brother was 5 years older and a lot bigger. Brother hated him. He didn't hate him so much. It's just that he was the new young one, took away all the attention from him, and hated losing the connection with mom and dad. Okay, and he didn't know what to do. He figured there's one thing to do: kill his brother, and he wasn't upset with that. Get ready for this, because he learned in church is that then you go to heaven and you're with your Holy Father. So he just says, I'll just speed up the process. Okay, he's a spiritual, and so he didn't even have to send. Because he had been programmed, oh no, you're going to heaven, don't worry about that. But then you'll be happy up there, and I'll be happy down here.
Oh, what a great story.
Okay?
Oh my God.
And it's funny for us to look at it now. It wasn't funny for the 10-year-old being drowned. And all of a sudden, as he got to that, I said, you think it's about forgiveness, because that's what we want to come down to, because when you don't forgive, you hold on to it. And that's the constriction. I said, you forgave the driver who cut you off. But that's not the root from where this comes. So what's going to happen is that's going to keep coming again and again. And I looked at him and I said, tell me if this is not a pattern in your life, that things constantly happen that aren't fair. Yeah, this and that. And he was, I could have got him more. I said, yes, but here's the root. And now we're at the root, you see, because if you don't forgive your brother, you'll never forgive anyone else, because they're further up the chain, as Freud would call it, okay? You got to get down to more of that when you developed that idea and became chronically, now anybody would be chronically in a panic state of protection trying to be drowned. His whole body opened and shifted. Now, I don't know what illnesses he's going to avoid because of it, because it was so prevalent in his jaw, over here in his chest, in here. I mean, and that could have, right then and there, healing that, forgiving that. We went through some different processes, and 10 minutes later, he was a new person. Now he comes in with a new step, and it just. But those are the kinds of things that when you can see what's possible and you understand the roots in the unconscious mind body, and then you see it open, you really get an idea of where these difficulties begin and what's necessary to go through your life biography. Are you willing to bring a light to those areas that you've hidden in darkness?
So well said. Maybe we should have started with this question, but I want to ask you this. What is your position whether thyroid is a condition that is incurable, as doctors tell us, and that we have to keep on carrying on, as a condition and treat for the rest of our lives? Or do you believe there is a different outcome possible for people?
When you change emotional state and your mental state, you operate at different levels. And even people that have, quote unquote, thyroid problems, they don't have it 100% of the time. There are times they forget about it. There are times it's not influencing them negatively. There are times when it's much worse than other times. So you have to understand, why is that? Okay, now, if you have a broken arm, whether I'm happy or whether I'm sad, my arm is going to be just as broken. Okay? But thyroid, because we have to understand it's an emotional organ that reflects what's happening in my mental and emotional states. And when I'm feeling really good and peaceful, I find balance again, and it's no longer a problem. And when I'm really stressed out and had a fight with my husband or with my wife or my kids, or I just lost my job, all of a sudden I now have horrible symptoms. And all of a sudden they worsen, and I can't get out of bed because I'm low thyroid, or I can't sit there. I'm bouncing off the walls. I'm high, So we have to understand there's this modulation that happens emotionally, and then take it the next step. Oh, if that's so, if it's not there all the time, and my emotional state does, and I think everybody who has it, they know they have days. Some days are better than other days. Some days, well, what is that? And that's my question. Model that. Okay, dare to sit down and journal day by day. And one of the things that I teach constantly is self-calibration, self-awareness. Okay, wake up in the morning on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. Just make a note. What's my state when I wake up? Am I a 4? Am I an 8? Okay, lunchtime, do the same. Dinner time, do the same. Bedtime. See what kind of consistency you have. One of the things in my program, my online program, I send people 3 messages a day as a reminder, just a little message. Hey, are you breathing? Hey, find something to appreciate. Little things, and calibrate yourself. Get used to calibrating, self-awareness, okay? And then just on that day, write the influence of what your thyroid condition had on you for the day. And see if you see a trend. Wow, when I'm 3 and 4, boy, it really weighs me down. I feel heavy. I feel tired. I can't move well. But when it's a 8, 9, or 10, wow, I feel light. I feel good. It's almost as if I don't have a thyroid condition. So you begin to see, and then you say, okay, well, what is it that creates the 3 and 4? What is it that creates the 9 or 10? And this is what the 7 keys is all about. These are scientific biological experiences. And it's about key 1, which is about your breathing. Key 2, which is about your internal dialogue. Key 3, which is about your posture and what you're embodying. Key 4, which is about your movement or stillness. Key 5, which is about your communication. Key 6, which is about your stress level and forgiveness level. And key 7, which is about, are you really on purpose to fulfill your heart's purpose? Or are you sitting there trying to fulfill somebody else's purpose for you? Okay. Or are you trying to fulfill your ego's purpose? Okay. Because when you get all that to the highest, each one of them in balance, you'll notice that your system functions at a much higher level. And now the key is, how do we keep you there? Find out what brings you down, what gets triggered, and you work on that. That's where we bring the light. That's the deep healing part of it. See, because you can work to keep yourself up, and you should, but here's something that almost sounds counterintuitive. The best time to do deep inner work is when you're feeling good.
Right, because you're willing to face it and to commit to it, right?
Right? Like the best time to bring your car into the mechanic for a checkup is when it's running well, not when it broke down on I-95, okay, or anywhere else out in the country and you got to get towed somewhere. You wait. See, what people don't see, unfortunately, the way my business has always been is nobody comes to me when they're feeling good. They wait till they come to my classes when they're feeling good, because that much they're willing to do for maintenance. But they come to you when they're overwhelmed and life, they just went through a heartbreak, or they just had this loss or this stress, or, and you can't do the deep work there until you pull them out of it, so they have the strength to then look within to deal with it. So prevention. And when you're feeling good, then but we all of us, I don't care how good a person tells me they think their childhood is, I don't believe it. I look at the body, I listen to what's happening with the symptoms in their body, and if they're in complete, total, radiating health, then I believe them. But if they're sitting there with heart conditions and anxiety conditions and all the different things that people have, whether it's high blood pressure or whether it's ADHD, I said, I don't care how good you think it was, there's something there that's hiding. And it's hiding inside the body, and it's just a matter of time, because it could hide there for 30 or 40 years before it all of a sudden has its final say. And then one day the ischemia is just too much and you have a heart attack, or the inflammation is too much and a blood vessel bursts. I said, and at which point then you got 1 minute, say goodbye.
And so what you're saying, it's this deep work that actually gets people to heal their thyroid conditions, right? And balance their thyroid and wean off drugs and be able to live a balanced life.
Absolutely. And there's no question, from my experience, I know with others, but mainly from my own, it's not a lifelong condition. Now, if they've removed it and cut it out, even then, this is the amazing thing. The mind, consciousness, has the ability to replace even when different physical parts of the body are gone. I mean, consciousness has this unbelievable state. In fact, one of my great motivations in this, and maybe if a person puts this in perspective, and this is part of my new book that will be coming out soon, called Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy, so as to be focused and happy and prevent illness and live longer. But the Accessing Your Inner Pharmacy, think about this, and this was actually in a report from Deepak Chopra's book, Quantum Healing, which is why my center's name, Quantum Healing Center, that was the motivation. I read this one case history, and it changed everything for me. And that was the case history of an individual with a multiple personality disorder who, when he was in one identity, I believe it was the Irishman, when he was being the Irishman, and not, believe me, I can't do a good Irish accent, so I'm not even going to try. But when he was the Irishman, he had diabetes. When he switched and then became the Englishman, he didn't have diabetes. Now, when I say diabetes, I'm talking about taking a blood test and showing the insulin levels in one identity versus the other identity. And there's all of this research that I've studied over many of the last 25 years, people who've had a tumor in one mental state of this identity and literally watch the tumor go down when they switch to another one. And you go, whoa, you know what I mean? What's shifting? And what's shifting is consciousness. What's shifting is the mental and emotional state, because every state has its structure, and that structure then either predisposes you to having diabetes or not, constricting something or not. So, I mean, those were the most amazing things. But what's amazing is because people, oh yeah, well that sounds too crazy and too wild. I go, really? I said, but you do it all the time. He goes, what are you talking about? I've never sat there. And I said, really? And then I give them a different example that they can relate to a lot easier and say, well, let me just ask you this question. I said, can you see having an exhausting day, and you come home and all you want to do is veg out and watch, I'm so exhausted. They just, too much stress today. I mean, we've all had those days, right? And you go there. And then all of a sudden, phone rings, caller ID, someone you haven't seen in a long time. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, my flight was just delayed. I can't get out. I happen to be in your city. I haven't seen you in 10 years. And you now start remembering the last time you saw her or him, depending what you're looking for. And all of a sudden you remember the amazing time that we had. And she says, well, I'm only here for tonight at the hotel by the airport. Would you like to come over and go out? Now, again, and then go, oh, yeah, of course. I'll be there in an hour. And all of a sudden you're filled with energy. You're in the shower. You're showering. You're changing. And you're just filled. Where the hell? You say, that's the shapeshift. Okay? You went from, it wasn't, it was like, you shifted now. Oh my God, something positive is coming. Now I'm moving. I'm exciting myself. I change my whole, I go into a strong embodiment, and all of a sudden, and that people can relate to. And I go, what's the difference? Because if that call didn't come in, you would have just kept convincing yourself, oh, I have a lousy day. And then you're going to go lay down and you're going to have a disassembled embodiment. And you're going to be going, woe is me, remembering about all the bad things you didn't like having today. And you're creating this circuit for yourself. And then you're going to be so exhausted. I think that's, do you like that example? I'm just going to use it as a comparison.
It very much makes sense. I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because it truly is our state of mind, our consciousness, that creates the physical experience in our body. And like we've been speaking, the moment those memories are released and the emotional trauma is healed, the body is free to regenerate itself and to restore the balance in the thyroid, that being, the core of our conversation. So I'm truly grateful for you sharing your experiences and your knowledge and your wisdom and your fun energy. I want to thank you again so much for being my hero, and like I said at the beginning, having inspired me so much and inspiring the thyroid work that I'm doing now.
I think it's just so fantastic, and in fact you make you said a word. I want to just pick up on it for 1 second, because it's such an important word: regeneration. Our system is in a perpetual state of regeneration. Every cell, every muscle, everything in the brain, the synaptic, it doesn't stop. The question is, what is your emotional state while it's regenerating? Because that affects everything in the cellular structure of the vibrational patterns of the receptors, of the interactions that are happening with other cells, of all of the biochemicals that are being released. It's all dependent upon the emotional state. So if you can maintain your state for 3 months at that level, that regeneration is going to come, and it's going to imprint and maintain the memory of feeling good, of being open, and it will regenerate, and the body naturally rebalances itself. It's just this amazing thing, because that's what existence and consciousness is. It has that creative intelligence to do these things, and we don't need to understand exactly how. I mean, I have no clue how do you go from being diabetic to to not being a diabetic in 2 minutes. I wouldn't know what to say and what messages to say, but the knowledge of that system of pure consciousness, of that field from our source, it has all of that. And all we have to do is remove the interference to let the regeneration happen at that highest level. So I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to talk with you. As you see, I can just go on and on forever. And it's so beautiful that you're doing this work and guiding people and directing people to let them know there is another way. And that doesn't mean abandon all you're doing. It doesn't mean say no to that. I want to be really clear, okay? But it means maybe start incorporating that. Find out for yourself. Okay, I mean, that's the key. I'm not saying, because maybe it just ends up and you reduce your medications down by 70%. Okay, so now you're just on a much lower dosage. Okay, and maybe you don't need it as regularly because you're feeling so good. Okay, but that you've got to find, and that's part of, again, why I do the program, self-awareness. You've got to get in touch with your body. And that's part of the problem. They're so in their head, stuck in a virtual reality of the past, and unconscious that they are, okay, that they're not even connecting and feeling their body. And they're so trying to sit there and worry about their social media. And thank you so much for having me on and sharing this with all of your different listeners. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we were able to speak together and today. And also, if people are in the Delray Beach area, I really encourage them to come and be part of your classes and to take a class in person with you. And thank you again for all your wisdom, all your sharing. And it was such a joy and such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Fire. Thank you.
Thank you.